Ah, you came, Alex. It was a celebration for my close friend and colleague's promotion. On this happy day, our elitist boss, Steve, decided to spoil the mood. Noticing there wasn't a seat for me, my colleagues tried to make space, but Steve laughed. Isn't it great, Alex? No seat for the incompetent. His outrageously rude behavior pushed me to my limit. All right. Let's all leave then. Let's do that. Agreeing with me, everyone started packing up, leaving only Steve behind. Steve, who was panicking, still didn't know about my true identity. My name is Alex, 40 years old. I came back from my remote assignment today to celebrate my friend and colleague, Mike's, promotion. Mike and I joined the company right after graduating from college, and we both shared a passion for futsal, so we became close friends. He's the one I shared my dreams with over a beer after work. I believe someone like you should be the one to lead and reform the organization. If one of us were to move up, it should definitely be you. Mike would always say this when he got drunk. I would just laugh it off, but Mike was quite serious. Alright then, let's compete to see who gets a position first before aiming for the president's chair. We worked hard, driven by this friendly rivalry. Neither Mike nor I got married. Instead, we focused on our careers, taking on different assignments to steadily build our careers. Mike, who was good at engaging others without making enemies, was entrusted with important projects by the company. He successfully delivered, bringing significant profits to the company. As a result, the president, Mr. Jones, announced Mike's promotion to the youngest department head. There was some unrest among the bosses in the company, with some saying it was too early due to his age. What are you talking about? Those who are young and talented and contribute to the company should naturally be given appropriate positions. If we can't utilize young talent and make this a company where they want to work hard, we won't survive in the future. Mr. Jones' argument was logical, and no one argued after that. Mike told me this with a laugh. It was good to see that Mr. Jones has some guts. You don't often get to meet him even when you work here. That's true. But Mr. Jones is a passionate person. Congratulations on your promotion to department head. I'll work hard not to fall behind. You'll get there soon, I'm sure of it. Not sure about that. Steve hates me, so it might be difficult. Steve hates anyone who threatens his position or criticizes his way of doing things. Steve is a 55-year-old man who is nothing but a nuisance. We once worked on a project together with a few others, but Steve's constant nagging and criticism significantly lowered the team's morale. Your proposal is unrealistic as usual. You should think of something more practical. He would dismiss ideas like this, and he was even harsher on younger colleagues. Maybe you don't understand the importance of this project because you're still young. How about moving to a project that's more suited to your level? He said this to a young but capable woman named Natalie, whom I had personally recruited from another team, and it made me furious. With such an attitude, it's no wonder we couldn't get good results. So, I once voiced my concerns to Steve. With all due respect, Steve, your comments lower everyone's morale. I'm not asking for you to be friendly. It's work after all. But could you please be more mindful of your words to foster better teamwork? I thought I was being quite polite. But it didn't get through to Steve at all. Back in the day, this was normal. Feeling frustrated but determined to prove oneself is important, don't you think? You might want to seem like a nice guy by criticizing me, but a truly competent person needs the courage to be disliked. My stress levels skyrocketed after hearing this. I realized that Steve was stuck in outdated notions of leadership and morality. His inappropriate comments and treatment of Natalie were particularly noticeable. But I couldn't just give up there. But, Steve, times have changed. Steve interrupted me. There's no need to adapt to the times. Aren't we all being too soft on the young generation? When I was young, we didn't get any consideration from our bosses, but we still worked hard. I'm done. I quickly gave up on Steve and ran around trying to cushion the blow for everyone else. Steve would throw insults and impossible tasks at me. Whenever it went too far, I didn't stay silent, which is why Steve disliked me. He never explicitly said he hated me, but his signature sarcasm made it clear. Alex, you and I just don't get along. Probably on a fundamental level. If it were up to me, I wouldn't want to work with you. I'd like to meet someone who could take that comment positively. I could only get through it with a half-hearted smile. Those times were tough, and my stomach often hurt, but the project ended successfully, so I considered it a win. Thank you, Alex. Without you, I would have left the project at the very beginning. I could finish it thanks to you. Seeing Natalie teary-eyed and appreciated me made me feel saved. After that, I was assigned to a different location and didn't see Steve again. This time, it turns out Steve was the one who organized Mike's promotion celebration. His ulterior motive of wanting to stay close to the rising star, Mike, was evident, and it left me feeling uneasy. Well, I'll graciously play the main role. It'll be nice to see everyone too. Someone trustworthy will handle the details, so it should be fine. I'm looking forward to it. Me too. We talk on the phone, but it's been a while since we've met in person. I'm looking forward to it. That was the conversation we had the day before the celebration. The venue was a well-known French restaurant inside a hotel. As I stepped into the hotel, I wondered if there was a wedding happening somewhere. Elegantly dressed women and sharply dressed men were walking around. Seeing the celebratory atmosphere everywhere lifted my spirits as I headed to the restaurant. The restaurant was enveloped in a vibrant atmosphere, making my heart dance. Looking around, I saw Mike and then heard Natalie call out to me. "Long time no see, Alex. How have you been?" "Oh, Natalie. It's been a while. So you're here for the promotion celebration too?" "Yes. I was invited as well. Since our last project together, Mike has been very kind to me." "That's great. Was it easy working with Mike?" Natalie nodded yes enthusiastically. "It was really easy. Of course, he said some strict things, but it's completely different from someone just being emotional. Logical feedback makes a huge difference in how you take it." Natalie's way of saying it made me laugh. Those times were tough. I'm sure we're both thinking of the same someone. Natalie laughed out loud at my comment. I think Natalie is around 26 years old. She's truly an incredibly talented person. I hope she continues to grow in our company. "Oh, by the way, Alex, where's your seat?" "I hope it's close to mine." Her question made me pause. Was there a seat assignment? My invitation didn't mention one. Taking out my invitation, Natalie looked puzzled. "Is that the invitation you received?" "It seems different from ours." Natalie showed me her invitation from her bag. They were similar but had different designs. Here's what the inside of ours looks like. Her invitation included a greeting, the date, and a seat number. Mine only had the greeting and date. Both of us were taken aback. "Wait, does that mean I don't have a seat? Could that be?" "Let me check with Steve." Natalie stopped mid-sentence. Being smart, she probably had a thought occur to her. I had the same thought. Could it be that this was intentional? Natalie's face was filled with anger. I wanted to deny it, but that was likely impossible. Maybe, just maybe. I am disliked, after all. As we were talking, someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around. It was Mike. "Alex. It's been a while since we last talked, but it's been even longer since we've met in person. Thanks for coming all the way from so far." Mike hugged me, and I patted his back in response. "Where's your seat?" "I asked Steve to put you near mine." Given our recent conversation, I wasn't sure how to respond. "Well, about that, the seat." My hesitant demeanor made Mike look puzzled. "Sorry, Mike. It seems Alex doesn't have a seat. His invitation doesn't have a seat number, unlike ours." Taking the invitation Natalie handed over, Mike was surprised. "Wait a minute, that's absurd. Alex, let me see your invitation." Handing my invitation to a flustered Mike, he compared the two and widened his eyes. "What the hell is this? What's going on?" "I specifically told Steve to seat you near me." "Where is Steve?" Mike, holding both invitations, went off to find Steve. Natalie and I hurried after him. "Steve. Where are you, Steve?" Hearing Mike's voice, Steve popped his head out from among the guests. "Mike? What's up?" the star of the day is raising his voice. Mike strode over to Steve, holding up the 2 invitations in his face. Steve, what's the meaning of this? Why is Alex's invitation different and without a seat number? I clearly remember you agreeing to seat him near me. Despite Mike's words, Steve remained unfazed. Oh, Alex's seat. Yes, you did ask me to place Alex near you. But, I thought it over. Steve gulped down his beer and said something unbelievable. I decided Alex didn't need a seat. After all, he's incompetent. The lively venue fell silent at those words. Whether he didn't notice or simply didn't care. Steve continued cheerfully. There's no place for the incompetent, be it in the company or at a celebration. Don't you agree? Mike's face turned red with anger. What have you done? I can't believe this. I owe a lot to Alex. Without his advice and encouragement, I wouldn't have achieved these results. It was a mistake to rely on you, Steve. I'll ask the restaurant to prepare a seat right now. When Mike angrily spoke, a staff member, sensing the seriousness of the situation, approached us. Is there something wrong, sir? Sorry, it seems we made a mistake and there's one seat missing. Could you please prepare another seat for us? I understand, of course. We'll arrange it right away. Thank you, and I'm really sorry. No problem at all, please wait a moment. As the staff member smiled and was about to leave, Steve grabbed her arm to stop her. Sir, is there a problem? No need to set up another seat. Understandably, the staff member was confused. Receiving mixed requests to add and not add a seat. Steve, that's enough. Please prepare the seat. No need, I said. He's incompetent. We don't need a seat for the incompetent. Seeing Steve laughing boisterously in the confused faces of everyone around, I quietly spoke to Mike. I apologized to Mike, who just turned around. Mike, I'm sorry for ruining the mood at your celebration. Not at all, I'm the one who should apologize. I'm sorry you had to experience this. Don't worry about it, Mike. It's honestly a wonder that someone as competent as you is friends with someone as incompetent as Alex. No need for a seat for the incompetent, whether in the company or here. After being called incompetent so many times, I finally reached my limit. All right. Let's all leave, then. When I called out, voices rose from various corners. Let's do that. I'm leaving too. Even Mike, the star of the day, started packing up, leaving Steve stunned. Wait. What are you doing, Mike? If you leave, it won't work out. Today is your promotion celebration. Steve, clearly panicking, tried to stop Mike. No, if this is what the celebration looks like, I'd rather not. I believe I got this promotion thanks to the support of those around me. Especially Alex. I can't celebrate by disregarding someone who's helped me. Mike's words must have conveyed his seriousness. Steve's expression started to change rapidly. Wait, you can't be serious. Mike, are you really leaving? Everyone's leaving too? We're leaving. I'm leaving as well, excuse me. Everyone started saying their goodbyes and leaving the restaurant. Excuse me, Steve. Let's go, Alex. Hey. Wait a minute. Please, Mike. As Steve tried to stop us, a restaurant staff member intervened. Steve? I'm sorry, but could you please explain what's happening here? This is quite confusing for us as well. Wait. Let go of me. Ignoring Steve and the restaurant staff, Mike, Natalie, and I left the hotel. Outside the entrance, our colleagues were waiting for us. So, what do we do now? Thank you all for coming to celebrate. I'm really sorry about what happened. Standing beside Mike, I also apologized. I apologize too. I'm really sorry. As we both apologized, voices reassured us. It's definitely not your fault, Mike. It's Steve who's in the wrong. Yeah. It really ruined the mood. My dad's running a small restaurant that's open right now. Would you like to go? I might be biased, but the food is really good. Really? I love small restaurants. It's not that I dislike French cuisine, but I prefer that kind of place. If it's open, I'd love to go. Great. I'll let my dad know we're coming. With a new destination decided, everyone began moving together, chatting cheerfully. Surrounded by colleagues, Mike looked genuinely happy. It seems that Mike is having a good time. Oh, I should call him manager now, right? Nah, he doesn't care much about titles. He'd be more upset if we suddenly started treating him differently. Really? Then I'll keep it as is. Do that. Steve really outdid himself today. Seriously. Not just me, he's done similar things to other female employees. Natalie grimaced at the thought. Her words made me stop in my tracks. Natalie, can you tell me more about that? On our way to the restaurant, Natalie shared more about Steve's misdeeds. Everything she mentioned was absolutely unacceptable, and I sighed heavily. For now, I shifted my focus back to celebrating Mike's promotion. The impromptu celebration for Mike's promotion at the other restaurant was a heartwarming and wonderful event. And on my way home, I made a phone call. Hello? It's me. Do you have a moment? I have something to discuss. The next day, I returned to my assignment and worked as usual. 6 months later, I finished my assignment and returned to the headquarters. On my first day back, Mike came to greet me. Hey, welcome back. Thanks, Mike. I'm honored you came to greet me. Oh, stop it. You're here to see Mr. Jones, right? So am I. Shall we go together? Sure thing. Let's go. Mike and I headed to the president's office together. Mike knocked on the door, and upon hearing come in, we entered together. Excuse us, Mr. Jones. I've brought Alex with me. Excuse us. We both entered the office and greeted. Ah, I see. Good job. Let's hear your report. Yes, sir. I reported on my assignment. I see. Well done. Thank you. After hearing my report, Mr. Jones made a phone call. As we sipped the coffee the secretary brought, we heard a knock in Steve's voice. Excuse me. Come in. Steve entered, looking surprised to see us. From what Mike told me, Steve had a tough time after we left the restaurant. The next day, he confronted Mike at work, asking why he left, but Mike calmly explained what Steve had done. Word spread within the company that the reason was Steve's failure to arrange a seat for me, making him feel quite isolated. So he stayed quiet for a while. You called for me, Mr. Jones? Yes, sorry for the trouble. Have a seat. Steve reluctantly sat down on the sofa. The reason I called you all here is about personnel changes. I've decided to step down as president. Though I still feel young. My daughter got married and I have a grandchild now. My wife wants to spend more time together. Oh, really? Mr. Jones, you still seem so young. I always thought you'd continue leading the company. Thank you. Well, I still feel young, but I think it's time. I see. Mr. Jones, thank you for everything. I won't forget your guidance. Steve stood and appreciated him. Mr. Jones smiled at him. Thank you. Now, about the new president. We've found the right person. Steve's face lit up with expectation. Who might that be? Asking who it was, Steve leaned forward, nostrils flaring with anticipation. Mike and I struggled to suppress our laughter at the sight. The new president will be Alex here. And Mike will be the vice president. Thank you, Mr. Jones. I will do my best to shoulder this responsibility. I'll do my best to support Alex. We stood, greeted Mr. Jones. Thank you both. I trust you with the company and our important clients. Mr. Jones shook our hands firmly. I glanced at Steve, who looked frozen in disbelief. I smiled warmly at him. Steve? Is something wrong? Are you okay? Steve finally responded to my question. What? How can he be the president? His final question was directed at Mr. Jones. With a gentle smile, Mr. Jones explained. Well, Alex is highly competent. The branch he was assigned to had a lot of old-fashioned issues, such as intimidating superiors and inappropriate behavior towards female employees. It's shameful for a company to still have such problems in this day and age. Don't you think? Steve, turning pale, responded to Mr. Jones with a series of yes and absolutely remarks. Well, that's all he could say. He probably recognized these behaviors as his own. So, I had Alex work on improving the environment there. It was tough because those kinds of people are usually very stubborn. But despite the time it took, he managed to make significant improvements, and we've received positive feedback from the younger employees. That's great to hear. Those young colleagues are very talented and will thrive in a more open environment. I smiled, thinking of the young team members from my assignment. I could imagine their surprise when they found out I was becoming the president, probably calling me in shock. From the flow of this conversation, you can probably guess why you are here. Steve was pale. He was sweating so much that I almost wanted to ask if it was midsummer. He wiped his sweat with a handkerchief, his eyes darting around nervously. I had Mr. Jones call you here to inform you of your consequences as the new president. I pulled out a thick file from my bag. It was a dossier of all the complaints and issues related to Steve. Seeing the bold investigation report on the cover, Steve must have been extremely anxious about its contents. What is that? Did you investigate my private life? Not your private life, but we gathered feedback from employees. I flipped open the report and began reading. Repeated personal questions. Do you have a boyfriend? What do you do when you get home? If you don't have a boyfriend, why don't we go for a drink? It was very unpleasant. Wow, that's really creepy. Mike interjected perfectly. Mr. Jones looked equally dismayed. When I made a careless mistake, he told me, maybe you're not cut out for this job. Have you thought about finding a job that suits you better? And when I asked questions about things I didn't understand, he would say, you don't even know that? I'm surprised you've managed to keep your job. Everyone makes careless mistakes, no one is perfect. Asking questions should be encouraged, Mike added. Incredible, Steve. You've never made a mistake? People seem to forget their own mistakes from when they were young. You made plenty of mistakes, and I remember covering for you often. Mr. Jones chimed in. Steve, now red with embarrassment, hung his head. No matter how many times I asked you to consult me first, you never did, Mr. Jones continued. Finally, Steve covered his face with his hands. That may be true, but... Mr. Jones shared many stories with me. Steve, if you can't change your attitude, there's no place for you in this company. As I stated this firmly, Steve turned even paler. He turned white, then red, and then blue. His changing complexion was so extreme that I began to worry about the strain on his heart. No way. Many employees look up to me. You can't just do this because you're the new president. Really? Do they? Mike's loud comment echoed more than he intended, and he quickly covered his mouth. Unfortunately, my investigation didn't find anyone who expressed such feelings, I said. Steve stood up, shouting. That's impossible. Those reports are fabricated. There are plenty of employees who admire and respect me. Not just one or two. Come on, Steve. As a superior, you're a pain to deal with. People won't tell you they dislike you because they'd face endless nagging. So they stay silent. No way. Even Natalie said she respected me. Hearing Natalie's name, I flipped through the report. Natalie? She suffered quite a bit from your behavior and had some harsh words about you. She never mentioned respect, only contempt. I remembered Natalie's blunt remarks and couldn't help but smile wryly. That was when I interviewed Natalie. I really can't stand it. People like him make it hard for women to work. I apologized her. I'm really sorry. If I had acted sooner, you wouldn't have had to go through this. No, I'm grateful you're investigating this now. But why are you always on the side of the vulnerable, Alex? Oh, that? It's probably because of my mother. Your mother? Yeah, it might sound a bit personal, but I was raised in a single-parent household. It wasn't too uncommon, but not exactly the norm either. My mother worked incredibly hard to raise me. She was always smiling and never complained or spoke ill of others. I recalled my life with my mother. She was always busy, but we would go out together on weekends. We visited theme parks, aquariums, and zoos. I loved my mother and cherished our weekends together. But then, when I was in high school, my mother collapsed from overwork and never recovered. It was shocking. I didn't understand what had happened. After the funeral, I found her diary. It detailed how her boss and colleagues treated her harshly. I was stunned. She never showed any of that in front of me. Her diary was filled with many regrets and sad moments. But it also contained many joyful and happy memories with me. She wrote about looking forward to weekends with me and how she worked during the week to enjoy those 2 days. Weekends are just 2 days out of 7. If the other 5 days are spent in a hostile work environment, that's tough. Even if she worked with a smile, it was hard on her mentally and physically. Natalie was quietly crying. I believe the company can do more to ensure employees don't have to suffer. Unfortunately, there are always going to be unpleasant people. But having someone you can rely on, who you feel is on your side, makes a big difference. My mother didn't have that. And thinking about it still makes me cry. I almost cried for the first time in a long while. But I held back and continued talking. So, in a way, it's like I'm helping my mother. She struggled alone without support, and I wish I could have helped her. That's why I do this. By the way, Mr. Jones was the department head at my mother's company. He apologized to me, taking full responsibility and crying as he did so. Mr. Jones did that? I see. When he started this company, he told me he wanted to create a place where everyone could work comfortably. He kept in touch even after I went to college. When I graduated, I joined his company without hesitation. I remembered the look on Mr. Jones' face when he saw me at the final interview. He was quite surprised, and I smiled back at him. Since then, I've been trying to help Mr. Jones. As the company grew, it became harder to keep an eye on everything. So, I started conducting internal investigations under the guise of being on assignment. So, you're like the company's superhero. Thank you, Alex. I remembered feeling embarrassed when Natalie said that. After completing my investigation of Steve and reporting it to Mr. Jones, he offered me the position of president. I want you to run the company. You can create a better environment. At first, I hesitated, doubting my abilities, but Mike encouraged me. Mike was one of the few who knew about my background in Mr. Jones. I've always told you, someone like you should lead. Create the company you envision. I'll support you. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Mike and I shook hands firmly, and I accepted the role. No way. How could I have known? It's not my fault. I sighed at Steve's loud protest. Steve, it's true that people won't know unless you tell them. But as a manager, it's also your job to understand your position and be aware of how others feel. Why should I have to be so considerate? It wasn't like this in my time. I sighed again at Steve's lack of remorse. It seems you don't understand. Fine. We'll notify you of the consequences later. Please leave. I motioned for Steve to leave. However, he continued ranting, forcing us to call security. Why me? This is ridiculous. There was no sign of remorse in Steve's shouting. I felt a sense of exhaustion as I watched him being escorted out. I'm sorry. I should have handled it better. I shook my head at Mr. Jones' words. No. Some people just don't change. Well, it can't be helped. Let's make sure there are no more Steves in the future. Exactly. We'll definitely create a workplace where everyone can work comfortably. After that, I was formally introduced by Mr. Jones as the next president. My phone didn't stop buzzing for a while, but everyone was happy for me. In the end, Steve submitted his resignation. There's no way I'm working under a president like you. Ridiculous. He left with those parting words, but with that attitude, he'll struggle anywhere. I hope he realizes the folly of his ways someday. Hey, Alex. It's time for the meeting. After knocking on my office door, Mike walked in. Thanks. Let's go, Mike. We headed to the executive meeting. We're working hard to create a company where everyone can work comfortably. It will be challenging, but I'm not worried. I have plenty of people supporting me.